Good morning, students. Today I'll be sharing the next theory class that is on eye. Now, hopefully, from next week or next Monday onwards, we will have offline classes. So the practical for the same will be offline. So for this lecture, you listen to this lecture. We will again discuss about this in practical, and we'll see the slides. I will discuss the schedule with you when you come back. So today's lecture is about the eye. So you have covered the extraocular muscles of eyeball in the theory classes of gross anatomy. So with this lecture, we will study the histological feature of an eyeball. So muscle part is, they are all skeletal muscles, so we are not discussing about that. We will discuss about the parts of the eyeball. So in this lecture, you will know the parts of eyeball, histology of cornea, retina, eyelid and lacrimal gland. So the internal features of an eyeball. This also you will see later in the dissection hall. So what is the structure of eyeball? It consists of three layers. So you will see outer fibrous layer consists of sclera and the cornea. Middle layer vascular coat made up of choroid. You can see here, this is a choroid. This blue line you can see of the sclera. Choroid, brown line you can see of choroid. Then you have the ciliary body and the iris. Iris is the one, these are the ciliary bodies and this is the iris. So this is a middle vascular coat. Iris, the color is responsible for the color of eyes. And the inner nervous coat, yellow color you can see, is of the retina. So it is made up of nervous cells, so known as the nervous coat. The space which is between the iris and the cornea, this is known as the anterior chamber, which is filled with the aqueous humor. And the space between the iris and the lens is known as the posterior chamber. So again, it is filled with the aqueous humor. And behind lens, this complete area, it is filled with the jelly-like substance known as the vitreous humor, and this is known as the vitreous body. Now first we'll see the cornea, its histological feature. So cornea forms the anterior 1/6 part of the eyeball, where the sclera is replaced by it. This is the transparent membrane. So sclera is quite white color. You can see in this picture. Sclera. So only in the anterior 1/6 part, the sclera is replaced by this cornea. It is convex forward, colorless, avascular, but it has a rich nerve supply. It has 5 layers. So starting from anterior to posterior part, it has anterior corneal epithelium, Bowman's membrane, corneal stroma, Descemet's membrane and endothelium. We'll see each layer in detail. So first is the epithelium. It is the outermost layer made up of non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium or a corneal epithelium. It regenerates rapidly after damage. So our cornea is the first thing which is exposed to the injuries. Then beneath that is the Bowman's membrane or anterior limiting membrane, this part. So it is quite thick, 10 to 12 micrometer thick, structureless, homogeneous lamina. It has a randomly oriented thin fibers of collagen. Now this epithelium will rest on this membrane, Bowman's membrane. So it gives stability and strength to the cornea and act as a barrier to prevent the spread of infections. Once this membrane is damaged, it does not regenerate. So there is a formation of scar and there is a impairment of vision if this membrane is damaged. Next is the corneal stroma, third part. It is also known as the substantia propria, or and it occupies almost 90% thickness of cornea. So more of a cornea is made up of corneal stroma, and this stroma consists of Type 1 collagen fibers embedded in a ground substance which contains glycosaminoglycans. Now they are arranged regularly and they form lamellar sheets. These fibers with one lamellary, they are parallel to another. But the fibers in adjoining laminae, they run in a different direction. Some fibroblasts are also located within this stroma. And the cornea is transparent because of the presence of these fibers. Fourth is the Descemet's membrane or posterior limiting membrane. So here it is beneath the substantia propria or corneal stroma. This part is acellular, homogeneous, which consists of meshwork of fibrils, collagen fibrils, and it produces it is a product of endothelium. Last is the endothelial layer. It is it is a single layer of squamous or low cuboidal cells on the posterior aspect of cornea. This rests on the Descemet's membrane. Now this is in contact with the aqueous humor. So all metabolic exchanges will occur here. Now this is also responsible for synthesis of proteins which are required for maintaining Descemet's membrane. This reabsorbs excessive fluid from stroma to keep it dehydrated. So help in refractive quality of the cornea. So in short, there are 5 layers in the cornea. First is the epithelial layer, non-keratinized stratified squamous. Then you have the Bowman's membrane or anterior limiting membrane. Then you have the stroma, major part that is formed by the collagen fibers type 1. Fourth is the Descemet's membrane or posterior limiting membrane, and then comes the endothelium. So high power view, you can see the epithelium, corneal epithelium, membrane, stroma, posterior limiting membrane, and a endothelium. Same slide. What is responsible for the transparency of the cornea is one thing, it is avascular. There is a regular arrangement of fibers in substantia propria. Then the collagen fibers and the ground substance, they have the same refractive index. And there is uniform and regular arrangement of epithelium. Also, there is cornea remains dehydrated, it doesn't dry up easily. So there is a transparency of the cornea. What gives nutrition to cornea? There is a lacrimal fluid forming thin capillary layer on the surface of cornea. There is an aqueous humor in anterior chamber. And there are blood vessels at the sclerocorneal junction. So all this will give nourishment to the cornea. Though it is avascular, the aqueous humor and lacrimal fluid will supply the nutrition. Also at the level of endothelium, it communicates with the aqueous humor, giving the nutrition. Applied aspect, corneal ulcer, where there is ulceration in the cornea, which is an inflammatory condition where there is disruption of epithelial layer and of the stroma. So it may leave scar behind, may affect the vision. Second is keratitis, that is the inflammation of cornea, may or may not be associated with infection. It may occur due to minor injuries or due to contact lenses, long wear of these lenses, or due to foreign bodies going inside the cornea, inside the eye. So there may be redness, then pain inside the eye, light reflection is not tolerated by the eye. So these are few symptoms. Then we have the corneal opacities. So this may occur when there is a scarring of cornea, and this causes light, it stops light from passing through cornea towards the retina. So, and when you visualize the eye, the cornea will appear white. There can be abrasion. So there is epithelial layer is lost due to trauma. So there is a abrasion over the corneal epithelium. Then corneal neovascularization, there is excessive growth of blood vessels from the limbal vascular complex into the cornea, which is caused by deprivation of oxygen from the air. Then keratoconus is a disease in which cornea thins and changes shape to more like a cone. Then Wilson's disease, there is a copper pigmentation. It affects whole of the body. It also affects the eyes, where there is copper pigmentation in Descemet's membrane. Now, few parts of eye, we don't have slides of those, but we can just go and discuss with those. Like sclera is a fibrous connective tissue layer. So here you get a cornea, and this part, white part, what you can see in eye is the sclera. Now, this sclera consists of irregularly arranged dense connective tissue, type 1 collagen, with network of elastic fibers and fibroblasts. Its thickness varies from 0.6 mm to 1 mm. Next, we have the choroid, which is a part of a muscular coat, a vascular coat. So it is in the posterior portion of the middle coat of eyeball. You can see the choroid. Then we have ciliary body and iris. This is a middle coat. So in this, it is a vascular layer between sclera and retina. Yellow thing what you can see is a retina. It has 4 layers. Suprachoroid, which has collagen fiber, elastic fiber and pigment cells. Vascular layer, which has blood vessels with loose connective tissue and pigment cell. Choriocapillary layer, which consists of capillary network, and Bruch membrane, which separates choroid from retina. And this acts as a basal lamina for pigment cell layer of retina. So just beneath that is your retina. So Bruch membrane of choroid, it acts as a basal lamina for pigment cell layer of retina. Then we have the next portion, the ciliary body, this part. So it is made up of ciliary muscles and ciliary processes. Smooth muscles are oriented here in longitudinal, radial and circular manner. They alter the shape of lens here. This is a lens. So these muscles and their processes is holding the lens. So they will alter the shape of lens for near and distance vision. And the ciliary epithelium will produce the aqueous humor. So in the anterior and posterior chamber here, you get the aqueous humor. Third part of the middle coat is iris. So this area. Now this is arising from ciliary body and it is between cornea and lens. It consists of smooth muscle fibers in the connective tissue, melanocytes and blood vessels. There is no epithelium in its anterior surface, but posterior surface is lined by ciliary epithelium. So here there is a ciliary epithelium. This is a heavily pigmented layer and the color of eye depends on its pigmentation. The smooth muscle here has 2 layers, dilator pupillae and sphincter pupillae. And it acts as a diaphragm controlling the amount of light entering into the eye. So your eye color will depend on this color of this iris. You have seen the different colors of the eyes. These are all responsible due to iris color. We don't have slides for these structures. So I have just explained what these are. Sclera, the white coat. Then the middle coat has choroid, vascular coat, ciliary process and body holding the lens, and the iris having the smooth muscles. Then we have the next important slide, that is of the retina. Retina is the innermost neuronal coat or nervous tissue layer. So it contains many signals transmitting towards the brain from the light or from the images. All images, they are imprinted on this layer. So this is very important layer, retina. Innermost coat, which lines posterior 3/4 of the surface, and it contains photoreceptors, rods and cones, which are essential for vision. This is a very important coat of the eyeball. It has a specialized area where vision is most acute, which is called as fovea centralis or macula. So you can see here, this area is known as fovea centralis or macula and contains only cones. It also has a blind spot, the optic disc, where the optic nerve is leaving. So there are no photoreceptor cells here. So in the region of optic disc, the optic nerve which is formed by the last layer of the retina will leave from here. So optic nerve is the only nerve which is not formed from the neuronal tissue. It goes towards the brain. It is formed by the layers of the retina. So remember this. Rest of the nerves, they are arising from the nuclei in the brain, but optic nerve is formed from the layers of retina. So if you see the microscopic structure of retina, it is made up of almost 10 layers. It is an important inner coat, coating the innermost aspect of the eyeball. And some books may have described 9 coats, some they skip this last layer. So they describe 9 layers. So you can remember as 10 layers, starting from superficially there is pigment epithelium, then layer of rods and cones, then external limiting membrane, outer nuclear layer, outer plexiform layer, inner nuclear layer, inner plexiform layer, ganglionic cell layer, nerve fiber layer, and then the internal limiting membrane. You should know the features of each layer and what they contain and their function. So we will see each layer one by one. If you get the slide of retina, you should know all these layers. You have to draw the diagrams. So be thorough with these layers. First is the pigment layer. So if you see, this is a microscopic picture. You will see the slide like this under low power. So you have to just differentiate the layers. Some are darkly stained, some are lightly stained, because some contain processes and some contain cell bodies and nuclei. So here also you can make out they are differently stained like this. So we'll see one by one. First is the pigment cell layer. It is the outermost layer of retina, which consists of single layer of low cuboidal cell containing melanin granules. They have long processes that occupy the spaces between outer segment of rods and cones. What is the function of this layer? First, it absorbs and prevents the back reflection of light that has passed through the neural layers of retina. So there is no back reflection of light once it is fallen on pigment layer. They produce the melanin and they play a role in regular spacing of rods and cones and provide mechanical supports to them. They also have phagocytic role, so they eat up the ends of rods and cones which are constantly present. Next layer is layer of rod and cone. So here you can see structure of a rod, structure of a cone. So these are the ones which are responsible for color vision, rods and cone. So they are photoreceptor cells. They convert the light into nerve impulses. So each rod or cone cells, they are regarded as modified neuron as they convert light into impulses. So they are also known as modified neurons, which has a cell body. They have here cell body, external and central processes. So you can see outer and inner segment, cell body, and their processes. The central process is an axon and it extends into external plexiform layer to synapse with dendrites of bipolar neurons. So in the next layer, the axons from these will go and they make synaptic contact with other neurons. There are about 7 million cones in retina and 100 million rods. So cones are less, rods are more. The cones, they respond best to bright light. So we have a photopic vision and sharp vision by cones. That is to discriminate the colors. I told you the rods and cones are basically for color vision. So the cones, they respond to bright light and responsible for discrimination of color. Whereas rods they are respond to poor light, scotopic vision, and they are responsible for the movement across the field of vision. When there is a moving object, the rods are playing the role. The pigment in the rod is known as rhodopsin, and that in cone is known as the iodopsin. This is second layer. Now, between second and third layer, we have one more membrane, outer limiting membrane or lamina. It's a pink color marking, so not very much visible. So this is second and third layer. You can see this external limiting membrane or outer limiting membrane. This is occurring because of zonal adherence of glial cells. They make contact with cell bodies of photoreceptor cells, all these rods and cones. So this occurs outer limiting membrane. Then we have outer nuclear layer. So here you can make out it consists of nuclei of rods and cones. Now here the nuclei of rods and cones are there, arranged in several layers, and so they are darkly stained. Just beneath that, outer plexiform or external plexiform layer, which is lightly stained. So axons of rods and cones synapse here with dendrites of bipolar and horizontal cells. So these are coming from down, lower levels. So if you see the outer plexiform layer, there is a communication between rods and cones, axons, with the dendrites of bipolar neuron and horizontal cells. So that's why it is the light stain area. Then we have the internal nuclear layer. Now again, if you see in this diagram, internal nuclear layer is again darkly stained. So this darkly stain it is due to again cell bodies and nuclei of bipolar, horizontal, amacrine and Mueller cells. So these four types of cells are present in internal nuclear layer. Now they are oriented perpendicular to layers of retina, and they have synaptic contact with rods and cones. As I told, the axons of rods and cones will synapse with dendrites of bipolar and horizontal cell here in outer plexiform layer. And on the inner coat, their axons will synapse with ganglion cells. So ganglion cell layer will be this inner side. So here there will be a synapse in a inner plexiform. So remember, inner nuclear layer has bipolar, horizontal, amacrine and Mueller cells. Dendrites will extend on the outer side, axons will extend on the inner side. Innermost layer we have ganglion cell. So here the synapse with ganglion cell, and outer side the synapse with rods and cones. Now horizontal cells, they are parallel to layers of retina, and their processes form synaptic contact with rods and cones on outer plexiform layer. Amacrine cells, they are on inner portion, and they also have contact with rods and cones in outer plexiform layer. So this layer is a middle layer, inner nuclear, having contact with both these layers, inner and outer plexiforms through axons and dendrites. Then we have internal plexiform layer. So as I told, the axons of bipolar synapse with dendrites of ganglion cells. So you have to just remember which cells or which processes are synapsing here. And both these processes synapse with processes of amacrine cells. So it contains horizontally placed internal plexiform cells and few ganglion cells. Beneath that is the layer of ganglion cells, which have again cell bodies. So you can see it is darkly stained, having the cell bodies of ganglion cells. All these, they are cells of retina. So they give off axon, which will form the fiber of optic nerve, and then they receive the input from bipolar cells. So in this layer, inner plexiform layer, their dendrites are synapsing with axons of bipolar, and their axon is going back and forming your optic nerve. So last is your layer of optic nerve, which is formed by axons of ganglion cell. Remember this, how optic nerve is formed. It is formed from retina by the axons of ganglion cell. The fibers will converge on the optic disc where they pass through foramina of lamina cribrosa to enter the optic nerve. Now the last layer here is the internal limiting membrane. So the processes of Mueller cells, they extend to internal surface of retina to form the internal limiting membrane. Now this membrane will separate the retina from the vitreous. So in short, we have seen the 10 layers. First is the pigment cell layer, having pigmented cells. Layer of rods and cones, photoreceptor cells. Rods are more than cones and they are responsible for color vision, sharp, bright vision. Cones and poor vision, poor responding to poor light is your rods. Outer limiting membrane, which is the pink color membrane between second and third layer. Outer nuclear layer having nuclei of rods and cones. External plexiform layer where axons of rods and cones synapse with dendrites of bipolar cells. Internal nuclear layer having several cells where bipolar cells synapse outward with outer plexiform layer and inwards with ganglion cells at inner plexiform layer. Then we have layer of ganglion cells. These ganglion cell bodies are located here and their axons will form your optic nerve. So these are the few total 10 layers of the retina. You should know each layer, what it contains, what synaptic contact it has. Very important slide. If you go get this slide for slide discussion, you should know thorough about all the layers of retina. Now we will see how many cells are present of different types of cell in the retina. That is, first is the bipolar cells. They give, so here in this diagram you can see this pink color, bipolar. So having a two processes. You know now the various classification, unipolar, bipolar, multipolar. So bipolar cells are always present in the special senses, eye, ear. So here we have bipolar cells, special neurons. So they give dendrites which enter the external plexiform layer and form synapse with axons of rods and cones. And their axons will form synapse with ganglion cell dendrite in inner plexiform layer. So you can see here, these are the axons synapsing with dendrites of ganglion cell, inner plexiform, and their dendrites synapsing with axons of rods and cone, outer plexiform layer. They are oriented perpendicular to the layers of retina. Then we have the horizontal cells. See, these are the horizontal cells which are synapsing with rods and cones, their processes, end processes. So here the horizontal cell will give off processes which run parallel to retinal surface. Now these processes enter the outer plexiform layer and they synapse with rods, cones and dendrites of bipolar cells. The horizontal cells here, they are oriented parallel to rays of retina. Now again important cells, amacrine cells. So here you can see bipolar, they are on the more on the inner portion of the layer. So their processes enter the inner plexiform layer and they synapse with axons of bipolar here, upper side, and also with the dendrite of ganglion. So amacrine, meaning of amacrine is neurons that have no true axon. So there is no true axon for this neuron. They are believed to play an important role in the interaction between adjacent areas of retina, resulting in the production of sharp images. They are also involved in the analysis of motion in the field of vision. So next is the Mueller cells. Now Mueller cells gives out processes which extend through the whole thickness of retina. They extend to the junction of layer of rods and cones with external nuclear layer, where the process of adjoining gliocytes meet to form a thin external limiting membrane. And internally, the gliocytes extend to internal surface of retina, where they form an internal limiting membrane. So these Mueller cells are mostly responsible for forming the external and internal limiting membrane. Uh, they supports the neurons and they ensheath them, and they have a nutritive function for them. So these are the few important cells which are present in the retina. Bipolar neurons, very important neurons responsible for vision. Horizontal cells, amacrine cells, and Mueller cells. Although there are many cells, pigmented cells, rods and cones, then you have the ganglion cells. So there are many cells which are present in the retina. Applied aspect, retinal detachment. It is very important case you get in an old age patient, and it is very dangerous also, because if not treated early, it may lead to loss of vision of the eye. So it is very emergency condition, that retinal detachment. So it is a separation of neurosensory retina from the retinal pigment epithelium. It may occur spontaneously in older age after 50, or maybe secondary to trauma in the region of head and neck. So you can see in this photo, this is a normal retina, yellow color, and this is a detachment of the retina. So if the retina get detached, there is no reflection of light on it, no transmission of signals, as rods and cones, they are photoreceptor cells. So the person may not be able to perceive the images, there will be loss of vision. Next condition is retinitis pigmentosa. Now here there is a degeneration of pigment epithelium. So there is a night blindness due to loss of rods, and this may progress to total blindness. Then retinoblastoma is a tumor which is commonly seen in children. You can see it more on a retinal layer. So the vision is again blocked here. So it depends on the extent of this tumor, how much blockage is present. So this was about the retina. So we have seen two slides, cornea and retina. Next is the lacrimal gland. So lacrimal gland is a gland which is situated on the lacrimal fossa in the medial aspect of the eye. Now this lacrimal gland will give the secretion in the eye, your lacrimal fluid or tears. They are coming from this gland. So this is what kind of gland? It is a compound tubuloacinar gland. You will see this gland in the dissection, which consists of many lobes pouring their secretion into the superior conjunctival fornix through small ducts. So when you cry, all the teary secretions, they are coming from this lacrimal gland. As the acina have feature of serous salivary gland. So you know the feature of serous salivary gland. There are pyramidal shaped cells with centrally placed nucleus and with the lumen. So almost the features are same, but here the lumen is wider as compared to serous salivary gland, and there is a low columnar cells lining. They have a large low columnar cells, but their size is big, and also myoepithelial cells are present, so which will contract and help in the release of tears. So that gland is situated laterally and the sac is situated medially in the eyeball. So whenever there is a secretion from this, it will go inside the eye, and then you get tears. Also, these tears will pass through the nasolacrimal duct, and then when you cry, you get tears in your nose too. So that is because of this connection. So here you can see the histological feature. So the feature is same as that of serous salivary gland. Only differentiating point is you can see the lumen is large here of the serous acini, and also the lining is low cuboidal cells, and the size is bigger. If you see, if you remember the serous salivary gland, the serous acini they are smaller, where here they are bigger in size. So diagrammatic view, here you can make out the serous acini myoepithelial cells in between contractile cells. The last slide is of eyelid. So eyelid is the protective covering of the eye. Histologically, you will see a structure like this. So there are many parts you see here. Your eyelid also have eyelashes. So here, histologically, externally to internally, what you get first is the lining of skin, which covers the eyeball. That is thin, loose, and elastic in nature. Beneath that is the loose connective tissue where there is no fat. Then blinking, opening and closing of eyes is caused by a muscle known as orbicularis oculi. Tarsal plate, which is made up of dense connective tissue, and it forms the skeleton of eyelid. And beneath that is the palpebral conjunctiva, which has stratified columnar epithelium with goblet cells. So if you see the histological structure, first you get the skin, which is covering your eyeball. So the skin is thin, epidermal and dermis layer. In that you have eyelashes too, so you get hair. You get the hair follicles inside. So you can see a feature like a thin skin here. Just beneath that, you get the sweat glands in a loose connective tissue. This is a loose connective tissue, second layer. Then you have the muscle coat. That's the opening, closing of eyes, blinking, all this will caused by this skeletal muscle orbicularis oculi. Then you have the tarsal plate, in which there are many glands of eyelid. And then you have the last layer, that is palpebral conjunctiva. So histologically, you will feel, you will see the structure like this, 5 layers. Now this is your eyelid, this part with the eyelashes. So when you see the first layer, you will get the hair follicles also. So three types of glands are present here. First is tarsal gland or meibomian gland in tarsal plate. These are sebaceous gland and they produce oily secretion on the surface of tear. So there is no, though it is a watery secretion, there is no evaporation of tear. They will just flow down your face or through the eyes. Then we have glands of Zeiss, that is sebaceous gland of eyelid. That is a modified sebaceous gland connected with follicles of eyelashes. And last is the gland of mole, sweat glands, which pour their secretion in eyelashes. These are also simple tubular glands. So three types of gland we see: meibomian gland, which is sebaceous gland, then gland of Zeiss and gland of mole. So that's all about the slides which we see in the theory class of eyeball. So though there are many structures in the eyeball, we do not have all the slides for practical. So what were the important parts I have covered. So in today's lecture, we have covered about the parts of eyeball, that is three coats: outer cornea and sclera, middle vascular with choroid, ciliary body and iris, and inner nervous coat of retina. Of that, we have the slides of cornea and retina. Also, the important features near the eyeball, that is eyelid and the lacrimal gland. So you should know the feature histological of this with the applied aspect. So for slide discussion, if you get these slides, these features you should know: how the cornea formed by 5 layers, retina formed by 10 layers, eyelid formed by 5 layers again. Lacrimal gland have a feature of a serous salivary gland. So all these things you should thorough with. Now this will be last online lectures. From next time onwards, we'll have offline lectures and practicals. So I hope you all have covered the questions in your rough notebooks, also the histological diagrams in the journals. So we will give you brief revision of what we have covered online, and then we'll continue with the next topic. So I expect all of you to read about these topics before coming to the practical. The schedule we will display soon about the revision classes, but all these things should be complete when you are reporting back to the department. I don't want anyone's journal incomplete when you are coming here, because if you keep all this backlog, then the next practicals you will be loaded with. So please complete all your journals before coming here. If you have come here also, complete your histology journals, rough notebooks, your gross journals, everything before reporting to the department. So questions for today's class is: enumerate the layers of eyelid from outside to inside. Name the types of glands seen in the eyelid. Classify them and state their mode of secretion and give their alternative name. What are the structural differences between lacrimal gland and serous salivary gland? Fourth is name the 5 layers of the cornea. State the factor maintaining transparency of cornea and name the layers of retina. So when you are coming for your practical day, your journal and your rough notebooks will be checked, and mostly will get them submitted for the checking, because so many practicals you are lagging behind. In addition, you will also go through various tests because you have not given your assessment offline. It was an online assessment, and to get the touch of your practical exam, I will be arranging your test for the histology practical. So don't expect any linearness here. Please be prepared with all the topics what we have covered. Thank you.